welcome to the September 24th meeting of the Portland City Council. Would you please call the roll?
Saltzman,
Here.
Novick,
Here.
Fritz, Fish,
Here.
Hales.
Here, welcome everyone. We have two time certain items on the council calendar this afternoon. We think they'll each take roughly an hour. We'll get to the first one in a moment. Just basic ground rules. If you're here to testify on one of those items, sign up with our council clerk. If you want to speak, you need to give only your name, no need for addresses and such. If you're a lobbyist representing an organization under our code, please disclose that. And obviously, we always maintain the rules of decorum here, so please no vocal demonstrations in favor or against your fellow citizens' point of view, but if you'd like to give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down to show how you feel, that's fine. So welcome, and let's hear, please, item 986.
Extend term of street closure program in Old Town, Chinatown for a period of 1 year.
Okay, I want to call up a panel for presenting this. Commander Westbrook, are you coming up? I know Sergeant Simon is, and Kelly Sills, I believe, is coming up with you, and Art Pierce. So come on up in whatever seating arrangement we can manage for the four of you, and then we also have a couple of other folks as well. Sarah. All right, we'll make it a five-person lineup.
Interagency coordination.
It takes a village to do this. So, Commander and team, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I'll start this off. I'm Sarah Westbrook. I'm the commander at Central Precinct, and I'm really here to give just that introduction and say that we are in favor of the street closure. Sergeant Simon here is going to give you the history of the street closure and some of the specifics about what we know about it, particularly in this last year.
Good afternoon.
Morning, sir. Sergeant Rob Simon. I'm a member of the Portland Police Bureau. I'm currently assigned to the Entertainment District downtown.
Sergeant, pull that microphone a little closer to you. There you go.
The closure began kind of operational since December of 2012. It's basically Friday and Saturday nights from 10 p.m. to 0300, 3 in the morning. And we do it on special occasions as needed. But generally, it's one sergeant, 4 to 6 officers. We close the area off kind of at a request for public safety, just the sheer number of people in the area. And on the screen there is the map of the closure. Is that inside to Davis? And again, that's Friday and Saturday night we do that. And some of the statistical analysis that have been done was mostly done 2012 to 2014. It shows self-initiated calls, dispatch calls. 2015 data is currently available with our operating system issue. We're having problems crunching those numbers on that. Hopefully be remedied soon, obviously, but right now our statistics for that are unknown. This graph really shows kind of the second one in 2013, this spike in self-initiated calls. That's when the closure first started. We did some things to tweak that because that was the officers going out to the bar areas doing self-initiated calls all the time. We changed that, a radio dispatch coding system. After we changed that, the calls went way down, self-initiated. However, the dispatch calls, you can see, went down as well. Once the closure happened, the streets were closed off. It became a safer environment for citizens and everybody else. And those crimes and calls for service went down. This graph here just shows the total offenses, part 1 and part 2 crimes. The big thing to get from this graph, sir, is the simple assaults. That's most of your bar fights, things like that. That number, 2012, 2013, was 18. That went down to 7, 2014, and we believe that trend to be down even further now. That's the majority of calls we get, the bar fight calls typically. The total calls for service between 13 and 14 went from 75 to 46. That's a pretty significant decrease. We believe that's all based on the closure. Some of the things we did within the closure to kind of modify things and kind of work as we go is we established the new radio codes, as I'd mentioned, to bring that self-initiated number back down to reality, which is in par. It went from 47 to 499, which is about the same. We believe that the officer's actual use of force within the closure is less, and that's simply because we often preempt fights. We're there when tensions get heated up. Typically, if you respond to a call for service, you respond to the fights in the process or it just got broke up, tensions are way high. For us being there all the time, we can literally just preempt fights. And we see 2 guys squaring off or security dealing with somebody, we just intervene immediately and the problem is just squashed. We're that visual presence of the officers there in uniform, and also security uses us to diffuse their problems. Somebody will have an attitude with security, they'll point to the police officer sitting half a block away and like, if you don't want to deal with me, you can deal with them. And typically, people just go away. So it's kind of a livability issue that's increased. And another thing we've been doing is like to kind of the continued and improved collaboration among the safety, bar personnel, and stakeholders. Since we started the closure, 2 more locations have opened up within it. And both their capacity combined is about 300. So we're adding 300 more bar goers and citizens within that closure. The area has become a tourist destination. Every weekend, we're having pictures taken with bachelor and bachelorette parties. Every weekend, we get people from all over the country, Seattle, saying, hey, we don't have this in Seattle. What is this? What is this place? This is great. It kind of becomes a tourist destination, what it kind of seems it's become. And we also handle livability issues in the area. Every weekend, we deal with a person who got their credit card stolen a week ago, or somebody using a doorway as a urinal. We deal with the livability issues in that area as well. And that's just because we're there, we're handling all the issues as we go. And we select the officers to work that area based on their temperament, their personality, kind of their patience level. They got to be friendly and outgoing, kind of a face for the police bureau to the public. And that's where we get, I mean, if you look at Twitter or Facebook, whatever, you'll see pictures every weekend of officers posing with citizens in the area. And we believe that's positive. That's part of our gig, is kind of be an ambassador for the police bureau. So for all those reasons, we believe the closure should stay. I don't know how the sidewalks would handle it if everybody let out at the same time in the area anyway. There's thousands of people come through this closure on the weekend, and if it wasn't there and the bars let out at 1:30, people are going to be in the streets, and somebody's going to get seriously injured by a car coming through. But that's all I'll pass back to Commander.
That's our part of it.
Great, thank you very much. Good report. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. My name is Kelly Sills. I'm the Parking Control Manager in the Bureau of Transportation. I just have a couple of slides. The first one I want to present to you is the occupancy data for, hopefully it'll come up, for the NATO and Davis Spark Park Garage. The reason that's relevant is that it's within close proximity to the closure area. And one of the changes between last year and this year is that the Davis Street portion between 2nd and 4th Avenues in Northwest was withdrawn from the closure area to allow not only parking, but better access to the garage.
Those are all Saturdays? Is that right?
Actually, it's both. The bars represent the weekend data.
Oh, okay, all weekend.
The bright red line, which is inclining, is representing Saturdays
see.
only.
Okay,
And then that kind of brownish line, which is relatively stable, is Fridays.
all right, I get it now.
And the opening of Davis Street really has had pretty much no appreciable impact on Fridays, but it has resulted in some increases on Saturdays. And so we think that's a positive thing, and we'd like to see Davis stay open. Moving on to the next slide. This is the information about citations and tows. And this slide reflects data just from summer 2015. As you can see, it's quite variable, which is probably a reflection of what the attractions are within the closure area on any given weekend. But the average number of tows during that time frame is 9. That's out of a total of approximately, or I should say exactly, 386 citations, of which 250 vehicles were towed. So about 65% of those vehicles cited were towed. The reason that there is a discrepancy between the two is that between the time a vehicle receives a citation and the time that a tow car is available to pick it up, the people may in fact leave the closure area and in that window of opportunity. And that really is all I had.
Thank you. Art or Sarah, who's next?
I think I'm next. We're demonstrating all the different city agencies it takes to help support these efforts. Coming out of the nighttime closure work, we heard requests that not just during the weekends and not during just these late evening hours, there was a desire from Old Town businesses and Chinatown businesses to see a more livable streetscape as a more permanent structure there. So PBOT was engaged really at the request of the adjacent property owners and the Old Town Chinatown Business Association to come up with a suggestion of a pretty simple striping change we could make to the section of 3rd Avenue from specifically really from Davis to Stark. And so this is a hard graphic to see, and we were hoping we could actually have after pictures to show today. We thought we might be able to do this striping this past weekend. It's likely to happen this coming weekend. But the key piece of it is that, particularly in that area right around Ankeny Alley, we're able to narrow the number of vehicle lanes, add in a protected bicycle lane, and create about 28 feet of additional plaza space for Ankeny Alley. So just by some restriping and really with, we think, very minor operational tweaks, we'll be able to sort of narrow down that space. A lot of the concerns we heard was about the crossing of 3rd itself, but also the crossing of Burnside and the crossing over to Ankeny Alley, that the pedestrian environment is really not very friendly the way it's designed now. So we think this change is a relatively minor tweak, but it will make a real difference in the 24-hour day experience of this area. It also comes with 8 additional crossings, and this is one of the areas where we just did those raindrops crossings at 3rd as well. So that's sort of a hint to come of what the street might be able to look like long term.
8 crossings on 3rd itself, or not all?
I think it's around in the surrounding area, not just on,
yeah,
it's
okay.
sort of complementing that, for
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
So we hope that probably this coming weekend will be when that striping will occur, so we will be able to show some pictures or direct you to those soon. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, Sarah, welcome.
So I think a reoccurring theme is both the interrelationship of a number of activities and the interbureau effort. And so that was echoed in the 5-year action plan that was before council about a year ago. So we're 1 year into a 5-year plan. And that was a 3-pronged effort to focus on business vitality, neighborhood investment, and livability efforts. And so I wanted to highlight one effort in particular. Last year we enrolled the Community Livability Grant program for the first time in Old Town Chinatown, and we awarded 5 projects through that grant program, and I want to highlight one project in particular that's related to the efforts we're discussing today along 3rd Avenue. One of the challenges that we highlighted in formulating the action plan was, again, the challenge crossing Burnside and some of the balance of uses and activities that we have seen in Old Town Chinatown. So the Ankeny Alley Association is a nonprofit association that was founded by the businesses that are adjacent to Ankeny Alley and to activate and effectively program that area. They applied for a grant to improve the cleanliness, the safety, and the activation of Ankeny Alley, and as well as expand and capture some of the unused right-of-way into the 3rd Avenue Plaza area. So they were looking to improve some of the drainage challenges they have and some of the safety and visibility challenges with sightlines that would allow them to reconfigure and better program the space in collaboration with some of the partners you see here today that would allow them to better program. As was mentioned, Ankeny Alley, as well as other areas of Old Town Chinatown, are one of the premier destinations within Old Town Chinatown when you think of entertainment. If you Google what to do in Portland, you will see Voodoo Donuts, you will see Ankeny Alley, you will see Old Town Chinatown as an entertainment destination. And we saw this project as a way to kind of highlight how to enjoy Old Town Chinatown as a positive entertainment destination. And this nonprofit association has really focused on doing that in a positive way, and the positive activation of this plaza was seen as a pilot to help demonstrate that. So again, it's about an $88,000 project. PDC, through our grant program, is providing the majority of the funds, but the association is also bringing both some in-kind dollars as well as real dollars to the match for this project. We are currently in the process of working on an operations and maintenance agreement and securing the final design and bids for the project, and hope to wrap that up by the end of the year, at which point they can move forward with construction and hope to be open for the next spring season. I think one of the key things to feature is the staff at the Bureau of Planning, as well as PDC and other partners, including the Clean and Safe at the Portland Business Alliance, have been really focusing on how to positively program this space. It is a significant improvement or expansion of space that extends beyond just the business's immediate front doors. And so how to make this a positive environment that's actively programmed and creates the kind of space and activities we would like to see in this space will be important. And so that the operations and maintenance agreement is an important first step. And again, having this active environment helps bridge that activity across Burnside to the closure area. So again, touching quickly on some of the benefits of kind of improved drainage that'll allow them to better reconfigure and orient their space and better program their space. And again, that connectivity and serving. And it's really a good pilot program of how we can see positive activation and entertainment uses through kind of a broader hours within this area.
Thank you all very much. Questions for this panel? Great work. I know we have Ryan Hashagan here from our Community Advisory Group, and I see perhaps some others that want to testify as well, but we'll bring you up, Ryan, since you've been part of this project from the beginning.
Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Ryan Hashigan. I run Icicle Tricycles and Pedal Works in Old Town, and I'm the chair of the Third Avenue Stakeholder Advisory Group. Our group includes a wide range of stakeholders from social service providers and residents to nightlife businesses. And over the last several years, our group has worked in partnership with the city, Portland Police, and PBOT to enhance the livability of our neighborhood. While the street closure has enhanced pedestrian safety and public safety for people enjoying the nightlife of Old Town, it has also brought our community together to create a plan for incremental neighborhood improvements for everyone in Old Town. With the help of Chad Stover from the Mayor's Office, PPB, Commissioner Novick's office, PBOT, and Better Block PDX, our stakeholder group has recommended and seen the city install designated taxi loading zones on Burnside, installed 8 new crosswalks on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Avenue, created better access to the Smart Park Garage, and will soon see the restriping of 3rd Avenue and a future expanded plaza at Ankeny Alley. These improvements recognize the historic nature and density of uses and people in our neighborhood and create safe routes for people and enhance and maintain mobility for all users. They improve pedestrian crossings and connections in the neighborhood, calming traffic speeds and allocating a dedicated space for people walking and biking, while also maintaining neighborhood parking and mobility for all users with no anticipated additional traffic delay. The overall projects stem from community demand for a safer, more walkable Old Town Chinatown for residents, visitors, locals, and tourists at all hours of the day. With the help of Better Block PDX, a pilot project brought our community vision to the street, and we had the opportunity to test out what worked and what didn't work. This allowed our stakeholder advisory group and the Old Town Chinatown Community Association to reach a unanimous decision in support for the 3rd Avenue Street Safety Plan. These plans build on the PDC's 5-year action plan for our neighborhood by increasing access north and south across Burnside and creating opportunities for better daytime business environment in Old Town Chinatown. Our stakeholder group will continue to meet and provide feedback on the results of the street closure and the street safety plan. We've had active recent discussions with the city regarding reducing the amount of vehicles towed, installing TNC loading zones, and reviewing the seasonality of the closure, in addition to managing parking with later meter hours. Our stakeholder group would like to thank the city, Portland Police, and PBOT for responding to our community needs and continuing to work for a better Old Town Chinatown for all visitors and locals to enjoy. Thank you.
No, thank you. Really appreciate your leadership on this and you pushing us to try experiments as a way to figure out how to make places better. It worked. Thank you. Okay, I see we have some other folks signed up to testify. Is that right? Lisa Frisch from PBA is here. Lisa, why don't you come on up and we'll take you first and then we'll take the sign-up sheet.
Good afternoon, Mayor Hales and Commissioners. My name is Lisa Frisch, and I am the Downtown Retail Program Director for the Portland Business Alliance and Downtown Clean and Safe. I'm here to support the Old Town Chinatown Community Association and their efforts to foster a vibrant neighborhood. You've just heard testimony. Well, you haven't heard testimony, sorry. You just heard staff members talk about the Old Town community's support of the extension of the entertainment street closure project and the 3rd Avenue restriping plan. I want to reiterate that this is a success story. When we were here 2 years ago, there was considerable conflict with residents and entertainment-based businesses in the neighborhood. The city had proposed formalizing street closures in the nightlife area, closing the area to cars to allow for safe pedestrian passage, as well as visibility for the police to spot any trouble that might occur. The project was met with concern from both residents and longstanding businesses in the neighborhood. The nightclubs were very worried about the real threat that street closure could pose to the survival of their businesses in the district. But the nightclubs took this as a challenge as a call to action on their part to ensure patrons were engaging in safe and responsible behavior in the district. They organized a hospitality committee, developed standards and best practices, and have engaged in self-policing to improve their operations and reaffirm their commitment to the neighborhood and being good neighbors in the district. For the past 2 years, the committee has been working closely with partners, including the Portland Police and the Bureau of Transportation, on enhancing the environment for pedestrians during the day, as well as Friday and Saturday evenings. Enhancements suggested by this committee that you just heard included adding new crosswalks on 3rd Avenue and Davis Street, amongst others, supporting the development of an active Ankeny Plaza, modifying the street closure to open Davis Street to allow access to Smart Park Garage and hopefully reduce the number of car tows, creating taxi pickup zones in the closure area for their patrons, and the overall 3rd Avenue restriping plan that you just saw. The initial restriping plan developed by Better Blocks PDX seemed really focused on restricting automobile access, much to the chagrin of long-standing neighborhood businesses that rely on this auto traffic to bring customers into the district. We applaud PBOT's efforts to develop a comprehensive plan that accommodates existing automobile traffic and retains much-needed on-street short-term parking for customers in the area. The width of the street allowed for a bike lane to be added and should not negatively affect capacity levels in the neighborhood. It is not easy for a project to satisfy the needs of varied interests in the neighborhood, and I want to again thank committee members and city representatives for truly making this work for all Portlanders. Both the ongoing street closure project and the restriping plan support the ongoing vibrancy in the Old Town Chinatown neighborhood and the city's adopted 5-year plan for the district to spur market rate housing, retail, and restaurant development. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thanks very much. And who else do we have signed up, please?
The next three are Joe Walsh, Dan Lenzen, and J.E. Isaac.
Come on up. Mr. Walsh, I think you're first.
For the record, my name is Joe Walsh, and I represent Individuals for Justice. We have no serious objections to this. We think it's a good idea. It should be extended for the year. We do have some concerns about the noise level, but my understanding is this is on the weekends, and it's after 2 o'clock. And I asked some questions, one of your staff, and we have no serious objections to this. However, I think the police department could at least be sensitive to the noise level. You know, once it gets 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, you know, that noise travels. So in our apartment complex, we have people coming and going on Friday nights and Saturday nights going to parties. It's part of living. You know, you gotta be a little flexible. However, it shouldn't be ignored. And it's a problem because we don't have, apparently, in this city, a really good noise level monitor. You know, we seem to be always talking about sending somebody out. Check it out, find out what's going on. My understanding also is from your staff again, is this lasts about an hour after the people come out of the bars. I've been in a bar so long I had to check the closing time. So, but if that's from 2 to 3.
Right.
So those are our concerns. We like the idea. It sounds like fun. People should be able to enjoy their lives within reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lenzen, welcome.
Howdy. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Dan Lenzen. I'm a partner with Venture Hospitality and Real Estate. We have 30 years of experience owning property and operating hospitality venues in Old Town Portland. I also am a board member with the Old Town Chinatown Community Association and chair of the Old Town Hospitality Group, representing nearly 40 restaurants, bars, and clubs in Old Town. Prior to the street closure, hospitality businesses in the street in the closure all vied for business in a vacuum, meaning the collaboration between business owners, managements, and staffs was minimal. As the closure continued into 2013, a collaborative of businesses emerged named the Old Town Hospitality Group, or OTHG. This group quickly found its voice and since has moved on to making great strides. Some of the accomplishments that have come of it are advocating for better mobility, shared resources and employees and management, mitigating issues and lowering calls for service, working actively and proactively with police, fire, OLCC agencies, marketing outreach to the metro area, creating and distributing a best practices for neighboring hospitality businesses, and co-producing the Portland Bar Academy with Big Village to raise the bar. Members of the Old Town Hospitality Group are actively involved with the Third Avenue Steering Committee, Ankeny Alley Association, Old Town Chinatown Community Association, and our national speakers. Businesses in the street closure have said how much they enjoy working with Sergeant Simon and his associates from Portland Police, John Marine from OLCC, and Rob Cruiser from Portland Fire. These individuals have fairly worked to achieve compliance to the respective rules they enforce. Now, the surviving businesses in the street closure have adapted and innovated during this time. Now they're doing better. Old Town Hospitality Group generally is a proponent of the extension of the ordinance. The support comes with a caveat to continue finding ways to implement the recommendations previously submitted by the Old Town Hospitality Group to include seasonality with a final goal of possibly removing the street closure as it is if it morphs into something else. From the Hospitality Group, we thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Thanks for your work. Mr. Isaac, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Jay Isaac with CFM. We're representing Oregon Theater Management, which owns and operates the Roseland Theater, which is an Old Town entertainment venue and member of the Old Town Hospitality Group. We believe the history of the closure thus far is an excellent example of public-private joint efforts to improve our community. We support the continuation of the closure for an additional year, provided, as others have mentioned and will mention, that Davis continues to remain open. That was a tweak that our group asked for last year, and it was instituted, and it's been great. The recent efforts to reduce towing of cars, which creates an unbelievable amount of bad will, if we can continue that, and not only continue it, but augment it and try to, figure out a way where there can just be really, expensive ticketing or something, so that, people don't have to go through that really expensive situation of waiting on their car all night and paying $400 or $500. Physical improvements that are being planned and talked about, hopefully those can be brought online as soon as possible. And we strongly support this idea of this year trying seasonality. And what seasonality means is not to reduce the police presence, that hopefully that would continue to be 365 days a year. But in the heart of winter, where we really don't see the type of street activity that we see other times of the year, it may be possible that we wouldn't have to close streets at all for certain weekends, say in January, February, when we're having, the wettest part of our weather. So that's what we would like to see going forward, a test of that this year.
Mr. Isaac, this is a bit of a tangent, but you brought up the issue of towing. And
Yes.
one of the things we've been looking at as PBOT is, should we move from a system of towing to one where we rely on boots? I was just curious whether you...
The boot idea, I didn't know if we had that technology or could do that, but I think that's an excellent idea, because there is the issue of if someone comes out of the bar during the closure and the barricades are up, how are we supposed to deal with that? A ticket probably won't do it, but I think boots or something like that would be an excellent solution.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, others that are signed up to speak?
Yes, we have two more, Karen Bowler and Steve Entwistle Sr.
Come on up. Well, they're welcome. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Hello, Council. I'm Karen Bowler with Tube and Fortune in Chinatown. Turns out I'm reiterating a lot of what Jay Isaac said. I'm a member of the Old Town Hospitality Group. We'd like to request that the city stops its practice of towing vehicles parked in the street closure. Currently, drivers must pay around $300 in tickets and tow fees to get their vehicles back. Additionally, a driver must go to a lot under the freeway in Industrial Northwest to wait until 6 a.m. for the tow yard to open to reclaim their vehicle. Needless to say, we've all had countless former patrons tell us they will not return to Chinatown again after such an experience. Frankly, we do not feel that we can afford to lose 18 vehicles worth of customers every week. We believe that the $90 ticket currently issued is punitive enough to deter repeat offenses and yet reasonable enough so as not to deter people from coming back to the district. Additionally, I'd like to thank you for declaring a state of emergency for housing the homeless in Portland. We're excited to see more beds become available for those in need. I do ask that you please also address the other piece of the puzzle by establishing enforceable laws to curb nuisance behavior by those on the street. We are truly hoping that this state of emergency will help homeless people as well as local business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Good afternoon, council. I was told not to speak too close to the mic,
You're fine. That's good.
so people can hear me. Anyway,
We'll just give your name, Steve.
Stephen Entwistle. I am co-founder of Oregon Healing Man Sanctuary. I'm also a advocate and whistleblower for the less fortunate. And this is one of the issues that we've been dealing with for a long time. We have here in this city a historic indifference towards local residents. Let me repeat that again. We have in Portland a historic indifference towards local residents that have been living here for a long time in these areas that are affected by noise. Okay, noise is the N word that nobody wants to speak about. Okay, because we have a problem with this. Okay, I am a noise-affected person on a daily basis because I live next to one of these bars. And I know that when you try to make a complaint, when you try to get any kind of resolve, best practices are never in use, not for us, not for the people, okay? But, and it's actually, when you complain, there's bad will that comes at us. We are the neighbors. We're the ones that are there, that live there. Okay, we're not there partying, okay? We're there living there. But some of us work and live. And when you take away our ability to sleep, it takes away our health. It steals from our job. It steals from our livelihood. The livability is basically what you guys are doing is irresponsible capitalism. Okay, you talked earlier this morning about responsible capitalism, Mayor. This is irresponsible capitalism. When you ignore the needs of the citizenry of your city and just go over the top and don't care about them, don't care about their complaints, okay? And then you go, well, nobody complained over here. Oh, everything must be fine, right? No, it's not. People getting hit on the chin every night, okay? They've complained. But you know what? They get no results. Nothing happens. How many citations have you given these bars on noise in the last year, 2 years, 3 years? Tell me how many. Does anybody know? People are dying. Homeless folks are trying to get into housing, okay, some of these areas. Okay, they're leaving that housing because of the noise, and they're going back on the street. Think about that for a moment. I think the officers should be required to live in the housing units affected by the noise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? So any council questions for staff? This is actually going to come back for second reading, so I have a few comments, and others might want to make some comments as well, because it'll come back on second reading. First, I want to appreciate the comments that were made in the hearing today about both noise and towing. I think those are two issues where we have to tune this particular tool a little better. I've been out with the team some nights to see how it works, and the noise level is significant. And we only have, I think, 1.5 or 2 now noise officers for a city of 600,000 people. So managing noise in an increasingly busy city, in a very busy entertainment district, is a challenge. And I appreciate the points that were made here about noise. I think Commissioner Novick may speak to this as well, but it's certainly not the city's goal to tow people. We simply want this public space to work. And so that's why vehicles that are there when the closure starts are ticketed. And I like the suggestion about boots and certainly think it's worth pursuing. But I just want to reflect on the success here overall and the huge progress that's been made in a couple of years. This went from a damage control strategy in the police bureau to a community building effort led largely by people from the community with support from the police bureau and elsewhere, and that's the way it should be. And I appreciate the business owners and the organizations that have stepped up to build that civic infrastructure that makes this a great neighborhood. And it's our job to be an effective partner for that. So I really, I think it's pretty remarkable, and I think Dan does too, to see where we are now, given where we were. And it's our goal as a city for this to be a lively, successful entertainment district and a great neighborhood. And that's a difficult balance to strike, but it certainly sounds to me like we're striking it better. The other comment I want to make is to just thank Chad Stover, a member of my staff, who gets strange assignments like last Thursday and this. We have sometimes called him the manager of mayhem in our office, but it's not mayhem at all because it now is actually a pretty lively place where people are getting along by and large. And I want to commend Chad for his good work and thank him very much for working with the community to get to this level of agreement that I don't think anybody might have had any reason to expect a couple of years ago. Any other folks want to make comments at this point? So I want to thank you all. This will be scheduled for second reading next week, and we're recessed for 20 minutes until we take up our next time certain. back to order, please. Would you please call the roll?
Saltzman?
Here.
Novick?
Here.
Fritz? Fish?
Here.
Hales?
Here, welcome everyone. We have a single item remaining this afternoon, and I'll have Carla read it in a moment, but I want to welcome you to this hearing. If you're here to speak, we will have a sign-up sheet, so please let our council clerk know if you'd like to speak. If you're here to speak on this issue, you need to give us only your name. You don't need to give addresses and such unless you're a registered lobbyist representing an organization. We maintain the rules of politeness here in this chamber, so if you agree with someone and want to validate their point of view, feel free to give them a thumbs up. If you don't agree with someone and want to disagree with their point of view, give them a polite hand gesture to the contrary, but we ask that we not make vocal demonstrations in favor or against our fellow citizens' points of view here so they can all be heard. So with that simple ground rule, please, let's hear item 987.
Add fossil fuel companies to the City of Portland's corporate securities do not buy list.
Welcome. I want to call up Zach Klonowski and our treasurer, Jennifer Cooperman, and shortly I will call up our county chair, Deborah Kafori, who I very much appreciate being here. Just a few comments from me as we get started. This is quite a day for the climate here in Portland. In the course of this day, we've listened to Pope Francis address a joint session of Congress and talk about his encyclical about care of the earth and care for people. We've seen the first Portland bike share bike with the council there to celebrate that moment. And now we're here to talk about the very concept that Pope Francis spoke about this morning, responsible capitalism. How do we invest public dollars in a way that is both socially and environmentally responsible while still being true to our fiduciary responsibility to take good care of our citizens' money? And that's what we're about here with this resolution. We'll have our staff, Zach Klonowski from my office and Jennifer Cooperman, present this here momentarily. But before they do that, I just want to thank 350.org and 350pdx.org and countless other organizations who've been advocating for this and have been patiently waiting for their public agencies, first Multnomah County this morning and this afternoon, the City of Portland, to put our values into policy. So I appreciate that advocacy. I suspect we may hear a little more of it this afternoon, but thank you for coming to do that. And with that, let me ask Zach and Jennifer to walk us through the resolution.
Good afternoon. Mayor Hales, members of the City Council, for the record, my name is Zach Klonowski. I work for our city in the mayor's office.
Zach, is this your first official appearance before council?
This is my first official
Mayor, I think we
appearance.
should acknowledge that.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. I am honored to bring forward Mayor Hales' resolution, which, if enacted, will add the top 200 publicly traded coal, oil, and gas companies, ranked by the amount of CO2 each currently holds in their proven fossil fuel reserves, to the city's corporate securities do not buy list, effectively disinvesting the city from fossil fuels. In Portland's 2015 Climate Action Plan, the city pledged to establish a divestment policy by 2020. This resolution makes good on that commitment. Now, the divestment movement began with 350.org founder and renowned climate scientist Bill McKibben, who I'm thrilled to say will appear via video during today's hearing. Now, I originally planned to go into great detail about the science behind climate change, but I think we can all agree that the science is settled. Climate change is here, and it is already having devastating effects on our city and state. From this summer's devastating wildfires that filled the Portland air with thick black smoke, to the unprecedented warm water temperatures in the Columbia River and its tributaries that led to massive salmon die-offs numbering in the hundreds of thousands, to the record-breaking summer days where we all sweated in temperatures soaring above 90 degrees. Indeed, the things that define our state are now threatened. From our pristine air and water, to our beautiful snow-peaked mountains, from our lush, seemingly endless forests, to the salmon that swim in our rivers and have sustained the people of this region since time immemorial, it is clear that the Oregon way of life, our way of life, is in jeopardy due to climate change. Now, I promised not to get bogged down in the science of climate change, but I do want to leave you today with one scientific fact. At the current rate of fossil fuel burning, we will surpass the Earth's carbon budget. The carbon budget is the amount of CO2 scientists say we can safely emit and still have a good chance of staving off runaway climate change. We will surpass that budget in approximately 15 years before a baby born today would be eligible to get their first driver's license or go to their prom. And that's why we are all gathered here today. Simple facts and observed realities have allowed humanity to put fossil fuel companies' core business model on trial, arguing that those companies have become rogue actors whose continued record profits rely on radical climate destabilization. Any institution claiming to serve the public interest has a moral responsibility to liberate itself from these contemptible profits, profits made at the expense of our communities, of the planet's future. In her recent book on climate change, This Changes Everything, Naomi Klein captured the spirit and practical effect of the divestment movement when she wrote, "The divestment movement is not meant to bankrupt fossil fuel companies. Rather, it is meant to chip away at the social license with which these companies operate. It is socially and morally unacceptable to be financing fossil fuel extraction." By passing this resolution today, we are joining a growing chorus of men and women, scientists and citizens, governments, universities, faith-based groups, and institutions from around the world that are standing up to fossil fuel companies and saying that your fundamental model of extracting and burning carbon is creating an uninhabitable planet. You must stop. You need a new business model. Just yesterday, Pope Francis said at the White House, "It seems clear to me that climate change is a problem which can no longer be left to a future generation. When it comes to the care of our common home, we are living at a critical moment of history." And the world is rising to this moment. As of 2 days ago, it was announced that investors representing $2.6 trillion in assets have pledged to cut fossil fuels from their portfolios. That is a 50-fold increase from the $52 billion that had been pledged at this time last year. Let's live up to this moment and add Portland's portfolio to the list.
Thank you very much.
Unless you have any questions for me or for Treasurer Cooperman, I'd like to turn it over to invited testimony.
Actually, Zach, I do have one question, which is I noticed that there's one company on the list that has a significant local presence, and I was just wondering if we talked to them about this, Evraz.
I believe we reached out to Evraz and we let them know that they are on the list.
Okay. This seems like that's a reasonable courtesy. I think.
Yes,
It is.
it is. Thank you.
So, Ms. Cooperman, a simple question for me. We are unusual as a city in that we have had for a very long time a AAA bond rating by Moody's and other investors' rating services. Do you see any threat to Portland's bond rating or the health of our fiscal balance sheet if we do this?
No, I do not.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for our staff? Thank you both. So I'm now very pleased to ask Chair Kafori to come forward. The county board acted on this same policy issue earlier today under her leadership, and I'm very happy to have you here this afternoon.
Thank you. And it seems like I'm a frequent visitor to your building, I'm wondering when I can get my own office, because
It's only reasonable.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Deborah Kafori. I'm the Multnomah County Chair. I very much appreciate the strong partnership that Multnomah County has with the City of Portland in addressing one of the most challenging issues of our time, the threat of climate change. Portland is a recognized leader on this issue, and today you have an opportunity before you to continue that leadership. We were honored this morning to have the mayor join the county board to support our adoption of a fossil fuel divestment policy, similar to a resolution that is before you this afternoon. Together, we are sending a clear message that with these policies, that we must accelerate the transition from fossil fuels to a future of clean, renewable energy. The era of fossil fuels is ending, and we are backing up those words with action. Where we invest our dollars is a reflection of our values, and investments in fossil fuels conflict with our sustainability values and our mission to protect the most vulnerable in our community. We know that the burning of fossil fuels pollutes our air, water, and land, the building blocks of life, and a crucial part of our identity as Oregonians. Even more concerning, the burning of fossil fuels is the primary cause of global climate change. For Multnomah County, this means we are now facing hotter summers that will increase the risk of heat stroke and respiratory disease, and warmer winters that will lead to an increased risk from vector-borne diseases like the West Nile virus. And these aren't far-off impacts. This past summer was a postcard from the future. We had 29 days with temperatures over 90 degrees, which is a record for Portland. We opened our cooling shelters more frequently in response to make sure that seniors and people with pre-existing medical conditions could get out of the heat. Pollution and climate change are fundamentally environmental justice issues. The impacts fall hardest on those who are already struggling with some serious health and socioeconomic inequalities that exist in our community. These are many of the same people that Multnomah County already serves: older adults, our homeless population, people of color, and low-income community members. This is true all across the country, where low-income people and people of color often face the worst exposure to the negative impacts of fossil fuels. It is for these reasons that the county supports fossil fuel divestment, and we encourage the members of the City Council to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sherry. Let's suspend the rules and thank our chair.
Mayor, I just got a text from Fred Miller. He did find the chair a very attractive office in our building. Where to send the rent bill?
Thank you very much. Okay, we have some invited testimony I'd like to bring up now. Sandy Polishuk from 350.org, Colin Price from Oregon Environmental Council, and Ashley Henry. Come on up. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Sandy, I think you're on first.
Mr. Mayor and Council, my name is Sandy Polishuk. It's with great pleasure that I speak to you today as we in 350 PDX celebrate this landmark. Mr. Mayor, from the moment we heard you come out for divestment on June 5th, 2013, World Environment Day press conference, since you shook Bill McKibben's hand over this idea the next month, since we met the same summer with your fellow council members and secured their support, we've been waiting for a vote. So thank you for bringing us here today. Climate scientists tell us we must keep 80% of fossil fuel reserves in the ground if we are to maintain a livable climate, which is why the divestment movement's ask is no more investments in the Carbon Tracker 200 companies, those fossil fuel companies with the largest reserves. These companies continue to search for more reserves. Shell is pursuing extreme drilling in the highly risky Arctic as we speak. Exxon is spending $90 million a day exploring for new carbon reserves at a time we can't afford to burn most of the reserves they already have. These companies' balance sheets are based on their reserves. They are resources which will become stranded assets when global policy catches up with science. At times, our campaign has been frustrated. While we waited for the mayor to turn his pledge into action, the city added fossil fuel companies on the Carbon Tracker 200 list to its portfolio. $61 million in bonds in Chevron and ExxonMobil. Because of these new investments, the city will not be divested until March of 2018, instead of this coming June. Back in 2013, we proposed a straight divestment resolution. Although we welcome the addition of Carbon Tracker 200 to your do not buy list, it's important to point out that this puts the most destructive industry in human history up for review again next year. So while we're excited that the current resolution is finally before you for a vote, we're still going to urge you to go further and pass a permanent resolution, just as the county did this morning. Thank you for your forward-thinking choice for our city. Your decision to no longer invest in these companies will not only be consistent with the climate planning you've been doing, putting our money in line with our values, but a wise financial one as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor Hales, Commissioners. My name is Colin Price. I'm the Director of Market Innovation with Oregon Environmental Council. Oregon Environmental Council is here to testify in support of this resolution that would add the 100 largest coal companies and the 100 largest oil and natural gas companies to the City of Portland's corporate securities do not buy list. In making the move to no longer buy securities from the largest oil and gas producers, Portland is taking action like other Oregon cities, including Ashland, Corvallis, and Eugene, who all voted to divest from fossil fuels in 2014. Oregon Environmental Council believes that changing the targets of our city's investments, combined with a full and robust implementation of our city's climate action plan, will help the city of Portland to better align itself with the values of its residents while setting an example that other cities and institutions can follow. We also believe it's important for the city of Portland to make sound fiduciary decisions. It's time for Portland to disentangle itself from the industries chiefly responsible for the climate crisis that threatens the health and well-being of our people, our businesses, and our ecosystems. Oregon Environmental Council's own experience shows that a fully divested portfolio can provide rates of return that are in line with market performance. Earlier this year, OEC made the decision to divest our entire endowment portfolio. OEC moved our endowment funds to a portfolio that reflects our values and our commitment to clean water, a healthy climate, and an unpolluted landscape, as well as our commitment to long-term financial sustainability. 1 year later, our experience shows that it is possible to make principled investment decisions without sacrificing returns or taking on additional risk. I'd like to thank Council for your support of this resolution, and I'd also like to thank 350 PDX and our other partners for moving this forward.
Very much. Ms. Henry, welcome.
My name's Ashley Henry. I'm here today as someone who served on the temporary socially responsible investment committee last year. And I'm really pleased that this conversation has advanced to the point that it has, so that you're actually evaluating putting these companies on the do not buy list, which was something that we didn't as a committee have the opportunity to propose. So thank you very much for this opportunity. When I was asked to serve on the committee, I was at the time an employee of a nonprofit organization that advocates on climate and clean energy policy called Climate Solutions. And I've gone on to work in the financial industry, and I'm pleased to say that one of the areas in which our company is active is in the development of renewable energy, which is a growing economic opportunity globally and certainly in the state of Oregon. And of course, we've already spoken about how climate change is one of the great moral issues of our day. I certainly don't need to emphasize that anymore, but one of the things that I am so glad that Chair Kafori pointed out is the human impacts and the impacts that climate change is already having on our most vulnerable citizens in Multnomah County. So I'm really grateful that that part of the conversation is very vibrant, because this is not just about polar bears. This is about human lives in our own communities. And you taking action on this is an expression of your commitment to the diverse communities that we have here. I know that historically there have been some questions around whether or not our investment policies as a city should be politicized. And I would argue that if you were to continue investing in fossil fuels, that in and of itself would also be a political act. The question is not whether to stop investing in fossil fuels, but whether we are complicit in a global disaster that is ongoing. We certainly recognize that those who manage the city's investments have a fiduciary duty to maximize returns, and yet there are significant questions about whether it is lucrative in the long run on a risk-adjusted basis to remain invested in fossil fuels with the risk that massive assets could become and remain stranded. So, of course, you as elected officials have a duty to serve the best interest of your constituents, and thank you for bringing me here today.
Thanks for your advocacy and help. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Okay, let's take the next three, please. Let's see, we have Christy Split, Mia Reback, and Mr. McKibben via video. So we'll take the people who are here in person first, and then we'll see if the technology will support the conversation.
Going ahead of Bill McKibben?
How's that feel?
Thank you, Portland City Council, and thank you, Mayor Hales, for inviting me here today. My name is Mia Reback, and I work with 350 PDX, the local chapter of 350.org. I want to start my testimony for commending the City of Portland for adding the Carbon Tracker 200 to the Do Not Buy list. This is a good first step to remove ourselves from the global fossil fuel economy. Today's resolution has potential to do more than just stop the city from investing in coal, oil, and gas. We hope that today's actions at both the city and the county will help inspire colleges and universities in Portland, like Portland State University, Lewis and Clark, and my alma mater, Reed College, all of which have student-led Divest campaigns. Climate change is one of the biggest threats of our times, and it's one of my priorities as a young woman to make sure we in Portland are not complicit in escalating the crisis. From unprecedented heat waves to wildfires and salmon die-offs, the effects of climate change are starting to be more noticeable here in Oregon, and I'm terrified. We're lucky in Portland to have a grassroots community dedicated to addressing climate change and elected officials who talk about taking immediate action to reduce our collective contribution to climate change while also increasing things we need more of, like public transit and renewable energy. Today's resolution signifies that we must do more than just reduce our carbon emissions at home. In addition to our financial resources, we must look at our physical resources, like our industrial land and our port terminals, and start the process of removing those from fossil fuel uses. As a city, we must focus our resources and instead invest in local living wage jobs in the renewable energy and clean technology sectors, as well as in sustainable agriculture. We at 350 PDX look forward to continuing to work with the City of Portland on implementing actions in the Climate Action Plan while we build a strong and resilient grassroots climate movement. Thank you all.
Thank you. Christy, welcome.
Thank you very much. Mayor Hales, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. For the record, my name is Christy Splitt, and I'm here today representing the Oregon League of Conservation Voters and the thousands of OLCV members that live here in the city of Portland. We support the resolution before you today for all the reasons that you've already heard, but we also think it makes it really clear. Portland will stop investing in the Carbon Tracker 200, some of the worst polluters in the world. Bottom line, that's a good thing. We also want to thank you for your continued leadership on addressing climate change here in the city of Portland. I work in the state legislature for the most part, and you set an example for the rest of the state. I hope you'll continue to do that. I also want to give a big thank you to 350 PDX and 350.org for their leadership on divestment and echo their call for a permanent resolution, as well as investment, not just divestment, but investment in the sort of future economy that Portland needs to be a center of. Finally, we look forward to working with 350 and with the council on ongoing local and statewide action to address climate change.
Thank you. Thank you both. So I think we now can play the video if Zach can make that magic happen, probably with Carla's help. It takes a village to operate our video system, so give us a moment. Thank you. Thanks very much.
I wish I was there in the most beautiful city in the country. I'm very grateful for this resolution around divestment. It plays an important part, one part, but an important part in this ongoing fight against climate change. Y'all there in the rapidly changing shadow of Mount Hood, with the smoke from this summer's horrendous fires still in the air, you have a better sense than people in many places of just how fast this crisis is breaking upon us, and the fact that therefore we need to do everything we can do to slow it down. One key part is what you're about with this resolution. To begin the process of breaking the political power of this industry, of making it impossible for them to any longer stand in the way of sensible climate policy. We've known for a very long time the kinds of things that we would need to do to deal with climate change, a price on carbon, say. But we haven't been able to do them because the power of this industry is too strong. This step is one powerful way to show solidarity with the victims of climate change, particularly the poorest and most vulnerable people around this country and around the world. We're so grateful that you're engaging in it. And we look forward to welcoming you to the likes of Stanford and CalPERS and CalSTRS and Oxford and the Prince of Wales and the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund and the Anglican Church and the United Church of Christ and the Unitarians and everybody else who has stepped up to the plate. Thank you very, very much.
Great, thank you, Zach, and let's take public testimony from any who've signed up, please.
We have 10 people signed up. The first three, please come on up, are Terry Parker, Joe Walsh, and Lightning Watchdog X, and they'll be followed by Lori King, Steve Entwisler, and Charles Johnson.
Okay, Mr. Parker, I think you're first.
Thank you. My name's Terry Parker. I'm a fourth-generation Portlander. I forgot my hat today, but consider I'm wearing it. Is this no-buy policy just more social engineering that's going to shortchange and cost Portland taxpayers? The question has relevancy because due to social engineering, Portland has become a city of shortages, double standards, and inequitable taxation. A shortage of parking has proliferated because the city does not require developers to provide adequate off-street parking with new development. This pits neighbors against neighbors. Drivers looking for scarce parking places are forced to consume more of the fuel the city wants to divest from. Now the city wants to charge drivers for parking on the streets for which they already pay for with gas tax revenues, ironically for a problem city policy helped create. This price tag for social engineering is unacceptable. Likewise, the city is creating a shortage of road capacity that is increasing congestion. The road diet plan for Foster Road will escalate combined engine running and idle times by a whopping 1,180 hours daily. Add in other examples such as the road diet on Gleason and the mess PBOT made of Division Street, and once again through social engineering, the city is significantly increasing public consumption of the disinvestment product. Then there is the Robin Hood approach to funding bicycle and transit infrastructure, which is one reason why there is a shortage of funds for maintaining city streets and roads. In contrast, taxpayer equity would require all transport modes, the users of all transport modes, to proportionally pay for the petroleum-laden asphalt they utilize and specifically reserve. This includes bus riders paying for roadways and bicyclists exclusively paying for the $800 million to accommodate bicycling in the Portland TSP. Any disinvestment in fossil fuel companies must also be coupled with a disinvestment of city government flaunting the use of those same fuels. This must include eliminating the entire city fleet of automobiles and replacing travel for public servants with the 3 Bs, backpacks, bicycles, and bus passes. By the same token, individual airline miles traveled have a similar carbon footprint driving a modern, fuel-efficient car the same distance. 2 round trips to Washington, D.C., or 1 round trip to Europe have about the same carbon footprint as an average motorist who drives 10 to 12,000 miles per year. Since airline travel is fossil fuel intensive, any no-buy policy must be accompanied with a no-fly policy for public officials. It's called walking the talk. Finally, the numbers of 2-legged feet have a direct impact on any human-related carbon footprint. If making a statement is so vital that you adopt this fossil fuel disinvestment policy, you also need to end your silence and confront the elephant in the room. That elephant being population growth and the negative impact overpopulation has on our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, I think you're next.
My name is Joe Walsh, and for the record, I represent Individuals for Justice. We fully support this concept. You're about to join 20 other cities, hold your head high, and say, you know, we got to do something. But then I read a little bit more, and it's something I don't understand. All these whereases, I agree with every one of them. They're really powerful statements. But then you get to the bottom, and you realize that you are going to let these contracts run out. And has just been brought up, 2017 for Exxon, 2018 for Mobil. You may not be here, Charlie. Possibility.
Right.
Another council could come in here and just wipe this out. So our suggestion is there's got to be 2 things that happen today. I know you're not voting on this today. You vote on it next week. But I want you to consider setting up the charter committee and put this in the charter. Because then another council coming in here in 16, 17, 20, 25 cannot overturn your good work. I'm going to trust you on this, which I don't ever do with politicians. But I'm going to trust you because somebody sent me a message and said, okay, Joe, why don't you trust, but just don't be naive about it. That sounded better, it sounded softer. Do the charter and also have this conversation. Why is this city making money off the investments? Why do we have investments? You collect taxes. You distribute services. That's your job. Not bankers. You are not bankers. I know we got a treasury and we have to deal with that. We have to deal with that office, that bureau. But when you make money, doesn't that cause problems like what you're saying is this is a disaster, this carbon investment. But we're not going to do it for 2 more years because we're going to let the contracts run out. And the funny thing is when I brought them up, you're losing money on them. So why would you hold on to them? Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. We'll get Ms. Cooperman back up and address those at the end. So it's good points. Go ahead, Lightning.
Yes, my name is Lightning. I represent Lightning Watchdog PDX. I do agree with the resolution. One of the issues I do have, though, is that what I don't want to do with these fossil fuel companies is to divest too fast. And the reason why I say that, if I might explain, is that even if you wanted to move over to electric cars, which I'm a Tesla fan, is that we produce 100 million cars a year. We have 2 billion cars out there currently. You can do the math. We don't have the current infrastructure to move along fast enough, even if we tried. And you have to take that in consideration, is that the fossil fuel companies, whether we like it or not, have been in business for many years, and they are considered to a lot of people the experts. Now, they have an understanding, they're looking at making other choices, but what I don't want to see here is moving too fast and jeopardizing the whole market itself. Now, you're going to tell me that a lot of you who leave this room tonight aren't going to go to certain gas stations and put in fossil fuels in your vehicles. And I think there's a large percentage in here that will. They will continue to do that for many years. We don't have the infrastructure to move fast enough to go all electric at this time, and we need to take that in consideration. And I don't want to see a lot of jobs lost. I don't want to see a real disruption if we don't have to create that disruption, if we phase it in over time. So that's one of my biggest concerns. Now, on this list that we were provided, as you know, the majority of the names on that list aren't AA bond rating anyway, so you put them on that list for a reason, that's fine, but you're not going to be able to invest by state statute in those companies anyway. And again, like I've stated before, I listen more to what Elon Musk has to say about what we're going to do in the future pertaining to climate change. I don't really listen to what the Pope has to say. And I'll listen to Elon Musk any day of the week on what he thinks, how he projects out, and he projects out in the marketplace. It's going to take a long time before we can go to the electric, all solar power. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the funding. So let's work with the fossil fuel companies in a reasonable manner and phase them out over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's take the next 3 folks, please.
Are Lori King, Steve Entwistle Sr., and Charles Johnson. And they'll be followed by Rod Such, Maxine Fuchsen, and Eric Means.
Good afternoon, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Hales and council members. I'm Lori King, and I'm representing Climate Jobs PDX. We know that Mayor Hales went to the Vatican, heard the Pope, and was inspired by him and his call to mayors to take initiative in dealing with climate change. We're very proud that our mayor was part of this special group. What an auspicious time for this divestment vote to come up in City Council and in Multnomah County just when the Pope is in the United States. Thank you, Mayor Hales, County Commissioner Kafori, and County Commission for your initiative. We agree with 350.org and what Sandy Polishek said about the need to push this forward with due speed to be a complete divestment. Today, I would like to testify about the other side of the divestment coin, reinvestment. We propose that the city invest seriously and soon in solar and other alternative energy, weatherization, and energy efficiency companies. Ones that pay living wages and have union rights and which employ local people, especially people of color and low-income people. We would like to work with the City Council on helping make this happen. We further propose that our mayor and City Council work with other city governments in Oregon and around the state to put serious pressure on state legislators to pass legislation that will encourage owners of businesses, faith institutions, and individual residences to produce solar and wind power on their roofs, rooftops, or property. Unfortunately, many of the state legislators are not following the Pope's call to massive leadership on this issue, and I think we need our city governments and leaders such as yourselves to work with other city governments around the state to put some heat in the legislature. The best legislation we know of that would help encourage people to produce their own electricity that they would sell back is called feed-in tariffs. This legislation would allow individuals and institutions to sell excess power back to the utilities. This program will dramatically increase the use of alternative energy, as happens in Germany, and in turn will make the companies that the city invests in do well. In order to really take the historic leadership on climate change that is urgently needed, we believe the city will need to invest in more green spaces, parks, community gardens, sustainable transportation options, and more, especially on Portland's east side, where equity calls for such action. And much of this is highlighted in Portland's own climate plan. The revenue for these projects should in part come from new taxes on Portland's upper crust, and on businesses, most likely formula businesses that do business in the city of Portland. I've heard the idea of taxing homes, a special property tax on homes valued at more than $500,000. Actually, Commissioner Novick was considering that, and he tells me today that that might need a change in state law. Well, let's have city governments push for that. We need a fair taxation system that pays for climate jobs. Climate Jobs PDX calls on the City Council to commit to work with the many people who want to see them both invest divested funds in alternative energy, weatherization, and efficiency companies, and to invest in city projects, public projects, done by local union labor that mitigates the climate's effect on our beleaguered planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, you're next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioners. And this isn't exactly what we want. It's a step we think we can get. What we wanted were responsible, fully informed elected leaders who wouldn't need to be badgered for 2 years. And in the week that we're here celebrating this partial victory, we wouldn't be struggling to keep carbon-sinking trees alive. We wouldn't have to agitate and put people up in trees. You can't separate the climate and trees. When we're going around almost allowing the slaughter of 150-year-old sequoias, and then fortunately a deep pockets person saves us from that insanity, and then we have a climate resolution a month after we sent an icebreaker up to pillage the Arctic and commit climate crimes. We need to have more than just this resolution. We need to have you or the future people elected responsibly act about the climate crisis. Preventing taking steps to reduce carbon emissions, to sink more carbon where it belongs and where it shouldn't have been disturbed. Going back to the earlier remarks, though, we do want to thank you for your efforts to undo partially many years of really crappy social engineering biased towards cars. Thanks particularly to the president of this council for showing his restraint when we had our first citizen speaker still speak about the cult of cars. We do appreciate the work of this council to encourage people to use modes of transportation that have lower carbon footprint. But let's not, after we get through these few people who will be expressing their thanks and encouraging us to do better, let's immediately begin to do the work we need to do of shifting our economy and our worldview to reduce carbon emissions, to sink more carbon, and to put people to work in environmentally friendly jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Entwistle. I also Oregon Healing Man Sanctuary founder and a advocate and a whistleblower for the less fortunate. Right now I'm a polar bear.
And you have company.
I wear the hats and I have my polar bear friends over here. So let's give a hand for the polar bears if we can.
Thank you. Welcome.
Now, what we faced over the last 100 years is, like you coined the term earlier this morning, is irresponsible capitalism. That's why we're in the trouble that we're in today. We've lost a lot of species of animals. We've lost a lot of fish. We've lost a lot of our environment, and we're getting fewer and fewer and fewer. Now, this is a small, in my opinion here, since it's based on the capitalism and such irresponsible, it's like, when are they going to, you're saying you're turning the corner and making it responsible. Well, 560 years they've never done it, so I don't know if it's going to happen this time. But anyway, we're making a step in the right direction. At least we're thinking about it, talking about it. The testimony today has been incredibly great for the people and for the planet. But we need to do a lot more. And the people and the most vulnerable are the animals, the people, and the water systems are all going to be destroyed. It's just a matter of time, and nobody knows when. That's the big question. When is too much? When it's like beyond the point? I think we may have already gone that point. We may already be too late. Who knows? We don't know yet. It's a big mystery. Question marks all over the place. Okay, but we gotta save. We gotta do the right thing. We gotta start doing the right thing and stop chasing after buco bucks. Okay, no, too many people are competing for money, and the problem is that it's destroying the planet and it's destroying our humanity that bonds us, and our fabric, our social fabric, is being destroyed. This is way bigger than just oil. This has to do with greed. This has to do with nasty, dirty, rotten crony capitalism. And as long as that stays alive, I'm going to be fighting it. I'm going to fight it until it's dead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you all. Okay, there's some more folks signed up.
The next three are Rod Such, Maxine Fuchsen, and Eric Means. And then the last two people who signed up are Jenna Garman and Diana Rempe.
Okay, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rod Such, and I am reading this statement on behalf of the Occupation Free Portland Coalition. This is a coalition of human rights, social justice, peace, and religious organizations, including Jewish Voice for Peace, Americans United for Palestinian Human Rights, Lutherans for Justice in the Holy Land, Veterans for Peace, and numerous other organizations. And we are in support of this resolution for the city of Portland to place the Carbon Tracker 200 on its Do Not Buy list. By all reports, this will be a historic day for Portland and for all those concerned with climate change. We offer our congratulations to you, Mayor Hales, and all the council members who support this resolution and are providing leadership in bringing about its passage. We also applaud the 350 organization and the numerous other environmental groups who were instrumental in inspiring passage of this resolution. The Occupation-Free Portland Coalition approaches this issue from a unique perspective. The world's largest oil reserves are found in the Middle East, and more than 25% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. This strategic resource is more than just a contributor to global warming. It is also a key factor in great power rivalries and ambitions that have led to war and instability in that region. It is a terrible irony that wars, the threat of wars, and even the danger of nuclear war has centered around the control of a resource that is literally destroying our planet. These rivalries and ambitions have also played a significant role in denying the Palestinian people their right to self-determination. The denial of fundamental human rights to the Palestinian people is in turn a central source of the political and economic instability that plagues the Middle East. As we celebrate this day, we should not forget that the freedom of an entire people is still unfinished business.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Go ahead. Sorry, folks, we gotta go back to the rules. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Maxine Fuchsen, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Jewish Voice for Peace Portland. Jewish Voice for Peace is a national human rights group whose mission is equality, justice, and freedom for all. We are here to stand in support of today's divestment vote. May this be the first step towards investing in climate justice for our city. The effects of climate change fall unequally on poor people and communities of color. That must be a concern for all of us. Divestment is a moral, nonviolent action that says we want our dollars to reflect our values. There's a Hebrew phrase, tikkun olam, heal the earth. That must be our shared commitment in standing for justice for all people and for the earth. Thank you so much for this fossil fuel corporate divestment vote.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the chance to be here. My name is Eric Means. I'm a computer engineer for a company in the West Side. I am also a member of the Portland chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. We are an ally of groups like 350.org. We focus on the federal level to enact, to focus entirely. First of all, we heartily support this resolution, but we also believe that it's largely symbolic. And we're looking for something with teeth, and so we want more from you than just this resolution. What we focus on is enacting at the federal level, a revenue-neutral carbon tax, putting a price on carbon at an initially small but escalating level for 10 years, small, steady, and very predictable. So only when carbon is priced, only when there's a real dollar value, can all the nice things we all hear about will have any teeth in it. But a very important criteria here is that we sit in the middle of a world where both houses of the U.S. Congress are controlled by parties hostile to almost every word spoken here today. A key part of our plan is it's revenue neutral. Every dime that gets collected by this tax is returned to households on a per capita basis. Every dime, short of the 0.5% required for collection. We're asking for your leverage, whatever leverage you have at the federal level to support a revenue-neutral carbon tax. It's easy for us to divest. Well, forgive me, it's not terribly easy for your level, but for an isolated city, it's easy to do. But as I said before, we believe it's largely symbolic. when those assets that are in the ground that form the bulwark of carbon and oil companies' values right now, when those are priced appropriately, thanks to a carbon tax, no one, the political leaders who disinvest will be joined at the exits by people with prudent financial interest. Those companies will not have the financial basis to go on. It takes a carbon tax. It takes, we believe, practicality. It takes a revenue neutral carbon tax where the money comes back in individuals' pockets, and that's what we ask for your support. In addition to this resolution, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Okay, who do we have next?
The last two were Jenna Garman and Diana Rempe.
Okay, come on up.
Good afternoon, Mayor Hales and Commissioners. My name is Jenna Garman, and I'm here representing Climate Solutions. We are a clean energy nonprofit that works to accelerate practical and profitable solutions to global warming. And for more than 15 years, we have been working to implement policies that demonstrate that clean energy and broadly shared economic prosperity go hand in hand. To that end, I'm very pleased to be here today to voice our Climate Solutions' strong support of this resolution to end city investments in the 200 oil, gas, and coal companies with the largest reserves worldwide. The City of Portland has long reflected the bold leadership and thoughtful attention to fair and effective climate solutions that we support. We're excited that the city is taking this important step to align its investments with its values and its commitment to climate action. In passing this resolution, Portland will join over 400 local governments and other institutions and 2,000 individuals, including Leo, across the country in standing up to corporate polluters who would threaten the viability of our planet and the well-being of our children with the message that polluting does not pay. A divestment movement that began just a few years ago has now successfully redirected more than $2 trillion out of fossil fuel interests. The refusal to invest in fossil fuel companies is more than just a political statement. It is sound investment policy. With the health of the planet hanging in the balance, it's hard to imagine a future that allows these companies unfettered access to their oil, coal, and gas reserves. We need to place our investments in the companies that will carry us forward in the 21st century, not stand in the way of our progress. Companies that embrace the clean energy transition and who invest in the health and welfare of their workers and their communities will thrive in the future. We thank 350.org and all of the other organizations that have been working on this issue. We thank you for your climate leadership, and we urge you to adopt this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Diana Rempe. I'm a community psychologist. I'm a parent, and I'm a resident of North Portland. I also work with people living outside as a street librarian with a very small local nonprofit. I care deeply about climate change, and I see how climate change is already affecting houseless people. And simultaneously, I worry about the kind of world my children are going to live in. To tackle a problem of the magnitude and severity of climate destabilization, we need an all-hands-on-deck approach. This includes every level of government, which means that the City of Portland, Multnomah County, and the State of Oregon should be doing all that they can to prevent climate change. This includes major investments in efficiency, like weatherization and insulating buildings and homes, and as well as divesting the city's investments from fossil fuels. While some people will focus on whether divestment as a tactic will be effective in speeding our transition toward clean energy, it's important to remember two things. That first, as so many of the people here have articulated so well, the money divested from fossil fuel companies will definitely go somewhere else, whether directly in energy efficiency programs, renewables, and other green infrastructure like parks and transit programs, or indirectly via investment in green funds. But second, and as a psychologist, what I want to highlight primarily is the importance of the symbolic significance of divestment as an important first step. Divestment sends a clear message to society that the business model of fossil fuel companies is simply unacceptable. This is a business model which involves extracting and selling a product which leads to climate destabilization and the undermining of societal fabric and infrastructure through resultant climate chaos, such as superstorms, droughts, floods, and water and food shortages, the effects of which people, particularly those marginalized, are feeling right now. Divestment sends a clear message that fossil fuel companies do not have the social license to destroy our life-sustaining atmosphere and climate. So I'm grateful to the City Council for taking this resolution on. I believe, as others have said, it's a really important first step. I hope that we will do this and thoughtfully and carefully leverage our reinvestment strategy with a focus on marginalized communities who up until now have seen far less benefit from Portland's existing climate-focused programs. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Anyone else that didn't sign up that would like to speak? If not, then I'd like to call Ms. Cooperman and Mr. Klonowski back up because I've got a couple of questions and there may be others as well. So Jennifer, if you could walk us through sort of how the old policy worked and what would prevent us from selling the remaining securities that we have before they run out the term of those bonds. Because people raise that issue. Well, okay, if we're going to change the policy, does that mean we run out the clock on the bonds that we hold, or do we sell them now, and why would we not do that?
There's nothing in the existing investment policy of the city that says that we cannot sell them, but we adopt a buy and hold approach with the investments in the city's portfolio. We cash manage the investments so that they mature at specific times, whether it's a payroll date or a debt service payment on outstanding bonds that the city has. We go through a very intricate process to manage to do the cash management for the city and to take an approach that directs our office to sell those securities is disruptive. And when we were crafting with Commissioner Novik's office the original approach to this issue, we talked about making this as actionable as possible a policy. And it's important to my office that we pay attention to the cash management operations for the city. And that was why we took the approach that we did.
And my second question is related to that, and that is we've now impaneled our socially responsible investment committee.
The permanent committee, yes.
Yeah, so the permanent version of that committee. So how will that work both in portfolio review of the portfolio we have now and in terms of looking at some of these issues like investing in companies that are specifically beneficial as opposed to just not in exacerbating the problem?
So the permanent committee had its first meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they will be meeting monthly to get started and then quarterly after that. And their charge is to take the principles that were adopted by the city council and using some social and value investing research, take the principles and the research and map that to the allowable investments, the eligible corporate investments that the city can look at, and make a determination and some recommendations back to you about which firms in that eligible list, how they fall on those criteria. The eligible list is relatively small. I think that will be surprising to most people. There are only about 40 or 50 names that fit the criterion that are either in ORS, in state law, or in the investment policy that you adopt. So the committee will be reconciling the principles with the behaviors and of the firms that are on the eligible list. And I've forgotten the second part of your question.
Well, so they can both do portfolio review now and perhaps open some new doors in terms of other types of investment vehicles?
We're very restricted to by state law as to what we can and cannot do with the city's excess cash. So I would suggest to you that it's not the portfolio is not the best place or the right place to make active investments in firms that are touching on the issues that we heard from all these folks right before I came back to the table. There are other opportunities and other bureaus whose missions are suited to that. The city's cash that is managed in the investment portfolio, these are debt service reserves, they're proceeds of bond issues for the utility bureaus, et cetera. And the ORS and the investment policy, the overarching goal in managing those policies is to preserve the principle, to ensure the safety and the liquidity of those funds, and then only thirdly is to look for a return. So it's really to preserve those funds, those tax revenues that we're collecting, et cetera, for the purposes of running the city. We are limited to firms that are AA minus or higher rated. A lot of the firms that that do the things that people were talking about before, maybe new firms, young firms, they don't have debt outstanding. If they do, it's not rated high enough. So the portfolio, I would suggest, is just not the right place to achieve those ends.
That's a helpful explanation. Other questions for our staff before we proceed?
Actually, Mayor, I wanted to take a moment to explain what the advisory committee is doing, and this seems like as good a time as any. Would that be okay?
Yes.
So we appointed an advisory committee to look at a variety of different criteria through which to examine companies that we might potentially meet the criteria that we might potentially buy their bonds. And they're supposed to look at companies' impact on the environment, but also in human health, their sort of general ethical practices, whether they have engaged in extreme forms of tax evasion, what their human rights record is. So we've asked that committee to look at all of those factors and give us a recommendation of companies to put on the do not buy list. The committee was really, after a long process of appointing them, only recently convened. I don't expect to get a final recommendation from that committee until 2016. The do not buy list that we have expires annually. The current list will expire at the end of this calendar year. My colleagues should expect to see a resolution from me before the end of the year extending the list for an additional year. The committee's charge is to come up with one set of recommendations per year. It could be that they have a recommendation, towards earlier in the next year rather than towards the end. So it may be that we'll have an update earlier than a year from now. But I just wanted to clarify that what we're doing here today is sort of different from what the committee is asked to do. We asked the committee to look at a variety of criteria, and what we expect is that the companies they suggest putting on the do not buy list will be companies that run afoul of more than one, probably several criteria. So we'd be putting fossil fuels on the same list, but through a rather different process.
Thank you very much. Good, helpful explanation. Okay, let's take a roll call vote. And if you would, Carla, would you please call Commissioner Fish first and out of order, because he's on a very tight schedule and he will have to leave without listening to the rest of us. So I know he's all broken up about that, but he's got to go. So if you would please call the roll.
I'll watch Channel 30 tonight.
Fish?
Mayor Hales, thank you for bringing this resolution forward and for the leadership you've shown all week on climate action issues. Steve, thank you for getting the ball rolling in bringing socially responsible investing to the council and the do not buy list. 350 org and 350 PDX, thank you for your stellar advocacy and for keeping this issue in the forefront. Zach, congratulations on your debut appearance. I would say the reviews are very, very strong. And not surprised given your family history. And this is another important step forward in this council's leadership around climate, and I'm pleased to cast my vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Saltzman?
Well, I'd also like to thank Mayor Hales for his leadership in bringing this resolution before us, and I do believe this is an appropriate, and I want to thank 350 PDX, 350.org for their tireless advocacy. These are issues that do demand the attention of the highest, those in highest elected office, and I guess in our little kingdom, that's us right now for this minute. But as we've seen today on the national screen, on the national forum, many illustrious world leaders are calling for decisive actions on behalf of our climate. And this is an important step in the right direction. It may not satisfy, it may not be total divestment, but it's certainly the recognition that fossil fuel companies should not be recipients of our future investments. And that's an important, given that cities tend to last for hundreds of years, that's a pretty important signal to be sending at this point. And I hope that many will join us. I was very impressed to hear that some $2 trillion of portfolios have divested themselves from the 200 or so on companies on this list. That's very impressive. As somebody who was active as a graduate student, I served on I was the graduate student representative on the advisory committee for institutional responsibility, where I went to graduate school. And that was in like 1980, and very much at that time we were talking about issues of divesting of stocks in South Africa, or stocks in companies that did business in South Africa. And it often seems, you can often feel like, well, what's one college's decision going to do to make a difference? Well, if you look at South Africa today, we have a democracy. It still faces huge economic problems, but nevertheless, it is a democracy. And so it was a mission accomplished, and I think it had a lot to do with those little voices here and there that started speaking up. And this is one more step in that right direction, a concerted effort of many voices speaking up. Please to vote aye.
Novik?
So I doubt any of them are listening, but I'd like to start by addressing the climate skeptics and the people who I'm sure there would be that would call us hypocrites. There's people who say that climate disruption just isn't happening. It's a left-wing myth that was designed to give cover for social engineering. I wish it were a myth. I wish we were not watching the destruction of the world as we know it. Unfortunately, that's a scientific fact. And there's going to be people who say, you're hypocrites. Don't the members of the city council drive? Doesn't the city buy power from PGE, which still has fossil fuels as part of their mix? And yes, we do. But that doesn't mean we have to invest our money in fossil fuels. It doesn't mean the city has to be in the business of making money off fossil fuel companies. This obviously is just one of the steps that we need to take. We need to do, and we're trying to do, a heck of a lot more. We are trying to make this a city where it's easier for people to bike and walk and take transit. And that requires significant investments, and it means asking taxpayers for money, and it also means doing projects that cause significant inconvenience quite often. But it needs to be done. One of the roiling issues we have in the city now is people who are upset about new construction, particularly of apartment buildings. And people are saying the new apartment building is ruining my neighborhood. And we should take whatever steps we can to mitigate the impact of new construction on existing residents. But it's a counterintuitive fact that denser development is good for the environment. Because if you've got 7,000 people living within a quarter mile of each other, a grocery store will spring up to serve those 7,000 people so people can walk to the grocery store instead of drive. And transit only becomes viable when there's a sufficient number of people at each stop for it to make sense. I mean, in New York, everybody hates the subway. That's because there's enough people at each subway stop in New York to maintain a subway. So we are going to be asking our fellow citizens to tolerate all sorts of things in order to address the threat of climate disruption. But that's necessary because it is the greatest threat that human beings have ever faced. There's nothing else like this. I was reading last year Elizabeth Colbert's book, The Sixth Extinction, which Jeff Berkeley, our senator, is such a great nerd. He said, there was another book with that title 10 years ago about the same issue. Elizabeth Colbert was, robbing the name. But still, it's a great book, and it is so sad because Elizabeth Colbert outlines the fact that it is likely that 20 to 50% of all species on Earth will go extinct in the next few decades. And the sad thing is, that's likely what's going to happen. We are fighting against the odds. If you look at the makeup of Congress right now, it's obvious we're fighting against the odds. But to quote Antonio Gramsci, the Italian communist political philosopher, pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will. That's a phrase to live by. And the action we're taking today is an expression of optimism of the will, that we can take this one small step to help stave off the end of life as we know it. Aye.
Hales.
I want to thank my very thoughtful council colleagues and excellent city staff and wonderful advocates from the community for getting us to this day. A couple of people referred to my visit to the Vatican and the amazing honor of having Portland be invited to have me, on behalf of our community and 60 other mayors from around the world, meet with Pope Francis about his encyclical about climate change and human suffering. And I was inspired there, and I was encouraged there, and I was alarmed by what I heard. First, I was inspired by the encyclical and what Pope Francis said then and again this morning about this being a moral issue. And it's a moral issue not only because of care for the earth, but because of climate change's effects on the erosion of culture and the vulnerability of individual people that disruption precipitates. And he's so clear in weaving those ideas together. I was inspired by that. I was encouraged because among the experts that spoke there, among the climate experts that spoke there, there was a very strong message, which is, as Steve just indicated, it is reasonable to hope. It is not too late. It is very bad. It is very dire, but it is not too late. And I think that's important. And in fact, the fact that cities were invited there is a wonderful thing, because national governments talk and cities act. And the Pope and the Vatican actually recognize that most of the innovation and forward motion on these kinds of issues is happening at the city level. And in fact, my wife, Nancy, recounts this. When the Pope was speaking to us, he kept talking about world leaders in his comments. And she said she was literally sort of looking around. Who's he talking about? Oh, he's talking about the mayors. He believes that we're world leaders. And actually, that's true when you look at what's going on this issue, because so much innovation and forward motion is taking place at the city level. We're a C40 city. Now there's 73 C40 cities. If those cities do what is in their carbon action plans, like ours, if we do what we say we will do in our plans, we will avoid 8 billion tons of atmospheric carbon generation by those cities alone. If another 73 say, we're going that way, and if 73 more after that follow them, that's going to have a global impact. And that's the whole point. So it's not too late. But then I was also alarmed because those climate scientists, in addition to saying there is time to act, there's time to bend that curve to 2 degrees instead of 5, we can do this. They also said, and in order to do that, we must strand a great deal of the carbon that has now been identified in the ground where it lies now. That's a radical statement to many people, but it is a radical truth that I think we have to learn and deal with. So I'm proud of where we are. We are an environmentally responsible city and a financially responsible city. So I appreciate your good work, Treasurer Cooperman. We have this solid reputation as a city. I was reflecting on hearing you speak because we always hire very prudent professionals as our treasurer, as we should. It's our money, after all. And I actually was across the street with your predecessor a couple of treasurers ago, a man named David Smith, when we passed the first Parks Bond measure in Portland. And we passed it at a strange time because Orange County had just gone bankrupt. And so the Moody's raters came into town, raters, not raiders, came into town to rate our credit and said, they had a lot of hard questions. And of course, they asked questions about, were we doing those imprudent things that Orange County had done? And this very mild-mannered person, David Smith, literally got red in the face and started pounding on the table. We don't buy derivatives. We don't, here are all these prudent things we do. And that's good. I'm proud of Portland for being a thoughtfully managed enterprise. But we also have a call to action on a moral and human level that this reflects. So hold us accountable. Tell us to do more. Tell us to put that carbon action plan, that climate action plan into action in lots of ways, big and small, jobs, change, investment, policy, and make us reflect those values in all that we do. But this is a good step, and I'm very proud of us for taking it. Aye. Thank you all. We're adjourned.